Well, I'm back. And by back, I mean I'm back home. Um, the way this works, of course, nobody will even be aware that I wasn't here because that's not how this camera works. So I've been gone Friday afternoon, Saturday, all day Sunday, and came back late Sunday night. And today I'm exhausted. Physically, emotionally, uh, it was a tough few days. Why? Because there's a fire burning in Northern California, uh, where I grew up, called the Park Fire. And my mom still lives up there. She lives in a community up in the mountains. Uh, there was a major fire. The fire started on Wednesday, and I became aware of it. I mean, there's so many fires. It's hard to keep track of which ones are new, which ones are old, where they're located, how big they've gotten. But somehow, someone pointed out to me, or I figured out, that this park fire was burning in my hometown. And so then I started paying attention to it. And I have access to lots of resources. I can monitor things remotely. I don't have to go up there. I don't have to. I don't need anybody on the ground to tell me what's going on. I can interpret data. So I started monitoring the fire, and it was burning in a direction that wasn't particularly threatening to anyone I care about. Not good, of course, that it's burning. It was just turned out to be quite an amazingly bad fire, just amazingly bad. But it wasn't any threat to my family, so I was a little bit relaxed about it. But on Friday, after I'd kind of started my day, I was out working on some project, and there was a chair sitting there in the shade, and I was waiting to take a break. And I said, I'm just going to sit down here and call my mom and see how she's doing. Talk about the fire, talk about whatever's going on. And so I called her and we had a chat. And my concern with where she is up in the mountains is that there was a major fire that went through there. I want to say 2018, maybe it was 2019. I think it was 2019, called the Camp Fire. It started by a failure of some PG&E equipment, set the countryside on fire. And kind of like this one, it just blew through like a blowtorch. It just went and went and went. And it went through some smaller communities up there in the mountains on 70, Highway 70 and some others. And then it kind of made a hook and it went through the town of Paradise. And it went through so fast. It started so quickly in such a remote area, and it moved so quickly through the forest, and that when it finally arrived at the city of Paradise, no one really knew what was happening. And people up there are historically disconnected. People go and live in those mountain communities to get away from it all. They watch news and they watch game shows, and they sit out on the front porch and drink themselves blind a lot of the times. And there's a lot of drugs and a lot of old people, and they're just kind of detached from reality. So when the Camp Fire came through back in 2019, it caught a bunch of people unawares. And because there's a lot of old people and a lot of disabled people, it was considered an inexpensive place to live, not desirable real estate. And since there were so many people that just got caught unawares, they couldn't get out. Another aspect of these rural mountain forest communities is that the roads are non-existent and poor. A lot of these communities were like wide spots in the road on the way to a mining camp or a logging camp or something like that. There was a lot of logging up there. And a lot of the forest is second and third growth forest, the original trees having been felled, 150 years ago. And so these mining camps and whatnot, well, they eventually had a general store, and then there was a post office, and then there was a something, and pretty soon there's a small community of people scattered up in the, and there's these tiny little winding gravel roads that go for, a mile and a half to someone's, house, and every house has its own little winding gravel road, and there's a couple of houses on a road, and all the roads are small and winding because, there was just no effort to make it suitable human habitat. It was just, if you wanted to live up there, go ahead, deal with the gravel, deal with the windy roads, deal with the being snowed in for 2 weeks at a time, deal with the landslides and deal with the fires. And so those people were detached, overlooked, not really serviced well. There have been many fires up there, though. And there was an effort when I was a kid, I think, it was a long time ago, to improve at least some of the roads, ostensibly as escape routes. That there was a lot of people moving up there because it was cheap. And it was kind of bucolic, trees, whatnot, deer. People were moving up there, retiring up there, a lot of them, war vets and people like that. And they had a really bad fire a long time ago. Like I said, I was probably 10 years old, maybe younger. And that panicked the local leadership, the authorities. And so they did widen some of the roads, pretty much as an escape route, which had the expected, anticipated effect of making it more attractive to live up there. So these little communities that used to be really just white spots in the road, they became more going concerns, and they had a Walmart, and they had a Target, and they had, and people started moving up there, building houses, and the roads got better, and it was general improvements, but it was still an isolated mountain community, and blah, blah. I could continue, but I won't. And then there was the campfire. And there was only 3 ways out of town. The campfire took a route that immediately cut 2 of them. And the fire was so bad that flames were just crossing the street. So you'd have to drive through flames. People didn't want to do it. Understandable. Probably fatal if you did that. Car would catch fire. A spark would lodge up in your motor somewhere and find a little bit of grease or oil and set that on fire. Pretty soon your whole engine compartment's on fire, and the gas line is on fire, and gas is pouring out, and the gas is on fire. And then your car's on fire, and you're in it, and you're stuck on the side of the road, and you were driving through flames, and there's flames on the left, there's flames on the right, and you're stuck on the road because your car just caught fire, and your tires are on fire, and you burned to death in your car. It's terrible, of course. It's just horrible, right? Who'd want to die that way? But that's it. It's car-based culture up there. So you don't go anywhere without a car. You don't go to the corner market without a car, because the corner market is half a mile away, and it's up and down hills both ways. Literally, you go down one hill, you go up another, you go down one hill, and then you're at the corner market. It's car-based. It's just completely, seriously, car-based. There's not even a bus system. So, of course, all these people, they rush out and they try and get their car to work, and it's got a flat tire. It doesn't have gas in it. They only put enough, they're poor, and they only put enough gas in it to get to the gas station, right? So, and it doesn't run real well, and sometimes it stalls, and they crank on the battery, and then they call Jed, who lives next door, come down with your jumper cables and start me. And this is just marginal. It's just marginal habitat for these people. These people are marginal people, barely clinging to life. They're on disability, and they're on welfare. They're retired. They're on a pension. They're on Social Security. And they got caught in the campfire. They got caught. "89 people burned to death." Everybody else after that suffered from PTSD. And, I guess I'm one of those people, because I used to live up there. So when there's fires, California fire season rolls around, I start paying attention to the fire reports. And you get them, the news generally picks up a new fire. They don't carry them for very long. It's all exciting. There's a new fire, and everyone clicks on the website, and they look at the new fire, and the smoke and the drama and the sparks blowing across the road, and then they lose interest. But if you pay attention, you can continue to monitor the fire. So last Thursday-ish, I found out there was another fire in the canyon near where I grew up and lived and spent time as a child and an adult, went to college, and the whole thing, and still have family up there. Yeah, I'm a mountain man. It's true. I had to deal with that. It was nice. So my mom is still living up there. Dad died a year or two ago after a long series of illnesses. He finally passed. But she's up there, and she's 82 and doing really well, as things go, remarkably well. Can live independently and drives herself around. And I know she's up there, and I know that I should check in on her. I've been monitoring the fire, and I thought, okay, it's fine. It's fine. It's sketchy, but they're on it. They got on it. It helps that we're kind of deeper into fire season because Cal Fire, California Department of Forestry, and Cal Fire, they're already good. They've got crews out. They've already contracted with the tankers that put out the fires, and they've got crews on payroll, and so they're fighting fires, and so it's easy for them to peel off a crew or two from a fire that's kind of being managed and send them over to this other fire. And of course, because of the campfire some years back, there is a sense of urgency regarding any more fires. Now, Paradise can't really burn again. It did quite literally burn to the ground. There were no houses standing. I don't know how many houses burned. Thousands. Most people got out. They had enough warning. And like I said, a lot of people didn't. I say a lot. 89 sounds like a lot to me. But okay, in the big picture, it's not a lot. But people did get out. They got in their cars. They figured out their car. They got it running. They had gas. And everything worked out. All the stars aligned. And they drove themselves out of there. And by and large, they're still living elsewhere now. They moved. They went to Oroville. They went to Chico. They went to, I don't know, Marysville, Yuba City, Sacramento, and some of them came to the Bay Area, I suppose. They're climate refugees because that's a climate fire. The trees were dead up there. They're killed by the bark beetles. It's been dry. And of course, they don't allow controlled burns or even natural burns because it's so populated up there. Now there's probably, at the time, there's probably 25,000 people living up there. All, like I said, all scattered throughout. And at the end of every little windy little gravel road, there's 3 houses, 7 or 8 people living up there. And when down at the very bottom of that windy road that goes like a half a mile or a mile up there, there's, 4 or 5 mailboxes on the main road. And the main road is windy. And it goes down to another road that's even bigger. And it's windy. And you're like 15 miles up there. How far is my mom from Chico? 17 miles? I think I checked it once. 17 miles to the next major town. 17 miles. And Chico's not that big of a major town. And all those people got out of Paradise and Magalia and, what do they call it? I can't remember now. There's another town up there. Well, and all kinds of towns, all the way up the Skyway, all the way up in the mountains, people had to evacuate. There's probably 30 to 40,000 people had to get out. And my parents almost got caught. They almost got caught. They almost got burned to death. So I'm talking to my mom. I sat down. I was working on for Friday and had projects to do and looking forward to working on projects. And I was kind of tired. I thought, okay, time to check in with mom. So I found a shady spot. I sat down in a chair that was available, and I called my mom. And about halfway through that conversation, I decided, okay, I've got to go up there. Now it's a fair drive. It is, and like I said, the last little bit of it is windy and narrow, and you have to contend with that. You have to be ready for that. Plus, the place is on fucking fire, so you have to deal with that. And there's all these compounding problems. And plus, I don't have a car. I don't drive. I mean, I can drive. I have a license and everything else. But I don't drive because global heating. So I have a truck. It's a working truck. It's old. It's 1968 Dodge. It actually runs really well. I'm sure I could go all the way up there. But it gets like 8 miles to the gallon with an old original 383. So I don't take my truck on trips like that. I'm happy to be able to get to the landfill and back. So I rent a car, and that's a big deal because I don't have anyone to drive me to the airport to get the car. So I have to take a bus and a connecting bus, and then I'm at the airport, and then I, bring the car back and I grab some stuff because I don't know how long I'm going to be up there. I could be up there a day. I could be up there a week. Who knows? It's a crisis, right? I throw all the stuff in the car, and then I slam that thing in the drive, and I'm heading up the mountain. and it's traffic and it's bumper to bumper and it's Friday afternoon and everyone got off early and they're all going to go up in the mountains. They're all going to go to Tahoe and Reno or wherever they're going. Well, they don't know is the place is on fucking fire. In fact, as soon as I got in the car and I brought up my phone and I did my, my Google Maps and I put in my destination and I told it, where I wanted to go. And then of course it's going to walk me through it so I don't have to think about it and miss an off ramp. Because you miss an off ramp and now you're 50 miles out of your way. So it told me right away, don't know how to say this, but you're driving into a fire. You sure about this? I was like, no, I'm not sure about this. So, but I guess I got to do this, right? I mean, if Google Maps is letting you know that you're driving into a fucking fire, well, then, yeah, I guess it's a big deal, isn't it? So I'd been monitoring that thing and I drive up there. I'm telling you this whole story. Why am I telling you this whole story? Because this is our story. This is your story. This is my story. This is his story. This is her story. This is our story now. Take notes. So I get in my rental car. It's up. I don't play around with rental cars. Cherry red Dodge Charger GT. I think the guys at the rental place didn't want me to have it. I think one of them probably had plans for the weekend. But anyway, I rented a Dodge Charger, so they had to go scare up their Charger GT. So I had a bright red Dodge Charger GT. And I lit that thing up, and I got up there. Now, it was all traffic and all these other hoo-haws going places. I'm driving into a fire. And I finally get up there, and I finally make it my way up there. And as I'm going up, when I finally break out of it's a beautiful ride. There's orchards and old oak trees over the road because the map app will take you through the back roads to avoid the urban areas and whatnot. And I've done that before. You don't need a map. If you're familiar with the area, you just kind of know the back roads and the connecting roads. And sure enough, it said, we're going to take you through woodland. I said, please do. So me and my navigating app, we went through woodland, we went through the croplands, and it's beautiful. Really is beautiful. Used to be, just an aside, you would drive through those lands and you would get, and one of the reasons you wouldn't do it is you would drive through those croplands and those orchards and there's water. You're going over little sloughs, all kinds of little waterways that are like broken off of the Sacramento River. And you go through there and the whole front of your car would be covered in bugs, gnats, mosquitoes, dragonflies. I don't even know what all. I grew up with that reality. Anytime I'd drive from Chico down south to Sacramento or drive to Chico from Sacramento, you get there and you can barely see out your windshield with the bugs and they're just plastered on the front of your car. It takes a week to get them off. And generally, you don't even bother. You just clean off the headlights, right? You just get out there and you just clean off the headlights and leave the rest of them. And the birds will pick them off eventually. Every time I've gone up there since, there's no insects. I mean, none, like not one. I didn't hit one insect on the way up there and on the way back. And when people tell you there's an insect apocalypse, they aren't joking. There is a thing going on, people. There's something going on. The insects are dead. The insects are gone. Used to be you drive through that part of the country and it'd just be a joke. You have to pull into a service station and scrape off the bugs so you could see where you were going, especially at night. The oncoming headlights, you couldn't even see out the windshield. It was so filthy. And now I didn't hit one insect. I don't mean a couple of little ones. I didn't hit any, not one. So I go up there, and once I break out of the beautiful orchards and oak trees and whatnot, and I'm back on the main highway 99 or so, 70, 99. I could see the cloud. Now the Sierras can have clouds over them. That's what happens when you have the wind blowing and it hits the mountains and it goes up and it makes a cloud and then it goes over. They just form above the mountains. This was not that kind of cloud. It looked like that kind of cloud. It was a huge, white, anvil-headed cloud. It looked like a thunderstorm, but it wasn't. It was from the fire. It was a cloud. It was a thunderhead made by the fire. And I saw that, and I thought to myself, well, it's a good thing I'm on the road. Because by the time I get to my mom's house, it's going to be an absolute clusterfuck. uh, because you see things like that, and the first thought you have to have is the roads are going to be packed with refugees. There's going to be broken down cars pulled into the ditch. There's going to be cars on fire pulled into the ditch because people don't maintain their vehicles. There's going to be people arguing about who gets to go into the intersection next. There's going to be lines at the service station out into the street blocking traffic, people trying to gas up. When you see a fire like that and you see a cloud like that, you just think to yourself, what am I getting myself into? So I was thinking I might get up there 5 or 6 o'clock, but because of the local traffic, I ended up being there about 7, just about the time it was starting to go dark. And I knew there was trouble when I got into the mountains, just to, the foothills. I started going up in the windy roads, and at every intersection there was either a community service officer. They're not police, but they have police markings, but they're just a community service. Or there was a cop parked at an intersection. I was like, what are these people doing? And it kind of dawned on me what they were doing. They're getting ready for the big evacuation. I didn't see any cars, but they were queued. They were pre-staged. They were staged for the big stampede. They were staged for the big stampede. No, ma'am, you can't go that way. That you need to go. You need to turn here and head that way. Now keep moving. They're staged to do traffic management. Make sure people keep moving. And by the time I got up, I went up Pence Road. By the time I got to Skyway, there was no less than 6 police and highway patrol cars at that intersection. No less. Pence is one of the 3 ways to get out. Pence was the first to get cut off with the campfire, so they were staged at Pence Road and the Skyway. And I got up there, and I stopped. It's a stop sign. I looked around, and what are these people doing? What is going on? And they were just standing around eating donuts and talking. So, okay, fine, good enough for me. And so I get up the Skyway into Magalia, and I found my mom, and she was fine. And all I'm thinking about is that cloud, that's that thunderstorm, that thunderhead, that pyrocumulonimbus. We're in trouble. We're in big trouble. And so I open up my computer and I'm consulting with the maps and I'm consulting with the apps and I'm looking for the data because that's how I roll. And I'm looking at the data. And meanwhile, I'm getting phone calls on my cell phone literally every 10 minutes from family members, my wife, my daughter, my son, cousins, and because they all heard that I'm heading up there and they're all giving me advice. And they're like, you got to get out of there. It's all on fire. They have a mandatory evacuation. There's fires here and there's fires there. Highway 32 has been breached and they're evacuating and all this stuff. And I'm like, I don't think so, but I understand their concern. People panic. So I got up there and I spent the rest of the evening, Friday evening. I just bolted out of here. I went and got the car, came back here as fast as I could, grabbed some clothes, just not knowing what's going to happen, threw them in a shopping bag and threw some electronics in, grabbed my laptop computer, made sure I had extra batteries for my phone, and because I'm going into a shit show, right? It's like, whatever. What are you going to do? And so I headed up there and, I put my computer out and started studying the situation. And it wasn't bad. Things hadn't really changed. They got lucky. Lord, they got lucky. There's a way that fire could have jumped one highway and run up that hill. And at the top of that hill is my mom's house. And it was a lucky thing. And I was thinking, as I was looking at it, thinking, if it's jumped that highway already and we haven't got the news yet, then we're in deep trouble. And as I walked in the door, this is curious how this works. Apparently, the cell towers were able to geolocate me at that position. And so when the alert went out for an evacuation warning for that exact evacuation management block, I got it on my phone. I was pretty much walking in the door. I think I really was. I was walking in the door. Hi, Mom. Wait, hold on a second. What the hell is this? And it was an evacuation warning. Now I don't know what the levels are. I'm not familiar with this stuff. So I had to go check. And sure enough, an evacuation warning is what they call set. Get set. It's ready, set, go, basically. And set means you need to be ready to go. It's not an order to go. You need to be ready to go. So literally, as I am walking in the house and saying hi to my mom, I get this alert. She gets it too, but she doesn't understand what these things mean. She says, I get too many alerts. Mom, they serve a purpose. Well, I was there. I got the alert because I'm in the area. And my phone told them I'm geolocated here. So I get the alert. Even though my phone is in San Francisco. I don't live there, but it's a 415 number. But I'm up in the hinterlands. And so it gives me an alert, evacuation warning. I'm like, what's a warning? What am I supposed to do with that? So I have to look it up. Fortunately, I have all my technology. And it turns out that you just have to be set. So that means you have to pack your shit, get your, you know the story. You should know the story by now. If you don't know the story, figure it out. You have to get your valuables, and that could be, things that you wouldn't want to lose: birth certificates, wedding licenses, things like that. Things that if you had to start your life over again from ashes, then you would have a life, right? You could identify yourself. You could verify who you are. You could qualify for benefits, right? You could qualify for FEMA housing. You could say, oh yeah. That's where I live. That was my address. And because that's my address and because that whole place burned down, yes, I qualify for FEMA housing or FEMA support or whatever. But if you don't have those documents, you don't qualify for jack. You're just a random person running in off the street saying, hi, I'm here. My house burned down somewhere, I think, maybe, probably, and I need stuff, right? They don't want that. So you have to have documents. And so I'm showing up on my mom's house. I'm telling you this long story. I'm showing up on my mom's house and I get this alert says, you need to be ready to go. I just showed up, but I've got this Dodge Charger GT cooling off in the driveway. The engine's still pinging from the horsepower I used getting up the mountain. And so I'm sitting down, I'm saying, okay, here we go. This is the drill. This is a campfire version 2. And it's coming up from the other side this time. It didn't even have the good graces to burn up the side that had already burned. Wouldn't that be nice? Why don't you just burn the stuff you've already burned? How hard is that? Can't we just set fires in areas that have already burned? And people are building some of their houses back. But there's not many houses built back. It's like 1 in 20. Just burn the place that's already been burned. Is that asking too much? Well, apparently it is. So now it's on the other side of the mountain, burning from the other side. And my fear, it's going to jump 32. And we're going to be well and truly screwed. So I'm trying to get my mom. Load up your stuff. Well, I have to do this and that. And the cleaners are coming Monday morning because she had another catastrophe in her house that she had to. The insurance people are trying to straighten her house out because she almost set it on fire. Close call. Mom. So, well, they're coming on Monday and I have to have my paperwork. Mom, by Monday, this place could be smoldering ashes. Listen to me. We have to have a talk. And so it took me probably 2 hours with increasing frustration just to get her attention. That's how people are up there. They just detached. Well, I don't know what's going on. I don't even have a TV anymore. Well, yeah, you don't need a TV. I'm here. I'm your oldest son. I'm a technological wizard. I'm here to tell you you're about to be burned out of your house and home. Okay, so let's do the drill. Okay, shall we? Get your important papers. Get your medications. Get some clothes. Get some spare shoes. It took me like 3 hours of increasing impatience. I got there like 7 by 10 o'clock. We had her stuff out in the back of the Dodge, and we're trying to find a pet carrier for her dog. Dog is this big. You probably carry it in your pocket. But anyway, the place is going to burn down, right? We're going to leave. The place is going to burn down, and we need the dog's special dog food because that comes from the vet. And when are you going to get any more of that? It's just like all this stuff you have to deal with. And so it's 10 o'clock at night. By 10:30, I've kind of given up. Everything's in the truck. Everything's in the car. And I've been monitoring the situation, and we haven't gotten any more alerts. There are lots of communities that are evacuation order. That means get out. They're going to come to your door. They're going to knock on your door. They're going to find you opening the door. They're going to say, what are you doing here? Didn't you get the order? You're supposed to be evacuating. Well, I don't want to. Well, you want to now because I'm here and I'm the sheriff. And you got to get out of here. And that's what happened to my parents, mom and dad. back in, Dad was still alive back in whenever it was, 2019, 2018 with the campfire. They were up there watching Fox News or whatever the fuck. And the sheriff came to their front door. Folks, why are you still here? Well, we're out here enjoying our life. We're free Americans. We vote, we pay taxes. Well, yeah, now you're voting, paying taxes, Americans, getting the fuck out of here. And so they did, and they almost didn't make it. No lie, they almost didn't make it. They sat there on their front porch and almost burned to death. Now, their house didn't burn, but all the houses around them did. And 2 blocks up the road, there was a fire crew fighting for their lives, trying to keep that fire from coming over the ridge. And if it came over that ridge, it's nothing but houses. Houses burn like gasoline. Houses burn like gasoline. They would have burned to death. Sitting on their front porch. The biggest fire the county has seen in decades. Burning all around them, literally on 3 sides out of 4. And they had to escape into the mountains. They escaped into the fucking mountains in the dark. Not because it was night, but because the smoke was so thick. You couldn't see. The light couldn't get to the ground to illuminate anything. They almost died. So I'm up there Friday night. Of course, I'm just frazzled. And this is a big thunder run for me from the Bay Area. Wow. In traffic. Comfortable car, thank God. And she's like, well, I have to set my paperwork out. And cleaners are coming on Monday. And I'm just losing my mind. Losing my mind. My own mom. I'm losing my mind. And finally got everything loaded up. And then I could relax. I'm telling you this long story. I'm going to get to the point in a minute. And I went to bed on top of the bed, on top of the sheets, fully clothed. I was exhausted. I had my phone right next to me. And what am I waiting for at that point? I'm waiting for another Amber Alert. I'm waiting for another alert, and it's going to go from evacuation warning to evacuation order. Go. And have I thought of everything? Do I know the routes out? Where is it burning again? It's burning on Highway 32. If it comes up this way, what's it going to do? It's going to cut off the Skyway again. Okay, but if I can get down the Skyway to Pence will be fine. That's already burned. So I can go down Pence or Clark, and if I get through it well enough, I can maybe go down the Skyway all the way to Chico. So, but that's a big if, because it's going to come right up there. It's going to come right up that part of the ridge. I might have to go north, but this fire is also burning north. Where does that leave me? That's the direction my parents escaped last time. And I don't really know that area very well. My mom's 82 years old. I'm not sure she can figure it out. And of course, the fire's burning north too. So if I can't get out of here down the Skyway to at least Pence and avoid the fire, if it jumps 32 and it comes up the ridge, it'll come up the ridge like gangbusters, of course. Then what am I going to do? I'm going to go up there and tough it out in a bright red Dodge Charger GT. I mean, what am I supposed to be doing here? And it occurred to me. It occurred to me. I'm exhausted. I'm tired. I'm frustrated. My mom isn't helping. And what am I supposed to do? Okay, get her in the car, get her dog in the car, and leave. Just leave. Get out while the getting's good. The police have already staged all the major intersections. Get out. But I had some confidence they were holding the fire at 32. I could tell they were doing that. And everyone else was confident. Yes, they're holding it 32. Forest Ranch, about a third of it burned, but they kept the other 2/3, and that's the lower reach of 32. And if it had burned through, I mean, it's a good thing there was a community there. It really encourages them to show up with big teams, big tankers, big equipment, and defend. And they defended Forest Ranch for the most part. It's still going to be a shit show, I'm sure. But they held Forest Ranch, and that meant they held Highway 32. And it didn't get over 32. And then there was a rumor that it got over 32. And then I had to check the rumor, and it didn't. Or maybe it did, and they put it out right away. So it's like, okay, I think we're all right. And so I slept. And I got up at 6 o'clock in the morning and checked the fire map. And okay, it held. They held 32 overnight. And of course, I didn't get the evacuation order on my phone. But if we'd gotten the evacuation order on my phone, we were, well, if it was me, it would be 3 minutes from leaving. But, 82-year-old mother, maybe 20 minutes from leaving. But, I'd done all I could. So why am I telling you this long story? I want to talk about uninhabitable spaces. I give you this long story because We live in an illusion. We live in an illusion that everything's going to be fine, that we're an advanced nation and we're wealthy and we have 911 and we got cell phones and we got sheriff and the police and the first responders and we got CAL FIRE, and we got maps and we got satellites, and we got all these things. And it's all going to work for us. Every single time, it's all going to work for us. Well, if you're familiar with the campfire, a couple of years ago, 89 people burned to death in their cars. You know better. These places are uninhabitable. Now, no one wants to hear that. I know no one wants to hear that. Where my mom lives is uninhabitable. You can't live up there. Well, you can die up there. You can burn to death up there. That's viable. Are you okay with that? Are you okay with burning to death? Because you can do that. You can be trapped, and all your escape routes get blocked by fire, or worse, and far more likely, by the way, all your escape routes get blocked by people who don't know how to save themselves. They're drunk. They're on drugs. They're half blind. They're 82 years old. Don't drive but once a year, right? To go down to get a dental appointment. And they get crossed up in the street, and they get crossed up in the service station. And there's a bunch of them hit each other in the intersection. And then they're arguing, and then they're firing their guns, and then they're screaming, and the dogs are running loose, and and someone has a horse trailer, and the horse trailer falls over in the intersection, and you're done. You're done. And no one listening to this video probably remembers the pictures of the cars in paradise, just lined up along the road, in the middle of the road. The road was full of, it looked like a parking lot. The road was full of cars in the ditch on this side, back bumper to bumper, crossed up in the street. All these cars on the road, burned out. And you just have to imagine, at some point, containing skeletal remains. If that, people tend to burn to ashes in fires like that. When you see cars that are supposed to have paint and rubber tires and aluminum rims, and they're just all this sick shade of rust gray, because everything has burned off. Everything that isn't metal has burned away. That's how intense the fire was. Everything that wasn't metal was just vaporized. And even the metal was twisted, and the aluminum melted, and all these puddles of aluminum running off into the ditch from the aluminum engines that melted, and the aluminum rims that melted, and the aluminum bumpers that melted, just runs off into the ditch, molten metal. And you see these pictures, and you see these cars all crammed into this street, bumper to bumper. And you know what happened. You have to understand what happened. Somebody ran out of gas. Somebody hit somebody. Somebody got angry and got out of their car and started threatening a lawsuit. Meanwhile, there's all this traffic backed up behind them, and then the flames come over the edge of the road, and you're dead. You're standing there arguing with somebody about insurance, and the fire catches you, and you breathe fire, and you drop down dead, and you burn up. Because that's what happens, because people are stupid. They're chimps. People are chimps. They don't know what they're doing. They don't understand anything about their situation. People up there in those mountains, well, okay, they learned a lesson with the campfire. They did. They surely did. Of course, a lot of them died. When you die, you don't learn a lesson. But the people who didn't die, they learned a lesson. So they'll know better. Oh, except a lot of those people can't go back up there. Their homes burned out, and the homes haven't been rebuilt. And the insurance companies are dragging their feet, as they do. And unless you've got a lot of money and you can get a mortgage and you can do all these things, you're not going to be rebuilt. And there's very little rebuilding up there. There's so little rebuilding that there's no retail coming back. They can go back anytime they want to. Some of them still have their stores. Some of them just closed their stores. But they're not coming back until there's people. So there you go. That's how it is. People don't understand. These places are uninhabitable. It's a good place to die. It's a trap. And all these things you're counting on saving you, or your 65-year-old son driving up there from the Bay Area to save you, all these things you're counting on saving you, it's a throw of the dice. Whether it's going to work or not. So I got up there, and by 10 o'clock Friday night, I was ready to roll. I was ready to get out of there. And all I was waiting for was the evacuation order. I was just waiting for my phone to vibrate and wake me up and say, okay, gotta roll. Gotta roll. Time to roll. They couldn't hold it through Highway 32. It jumped the line. It's heading up the hill. It's making a run. You got to get out. And all I got to do is get to Pence Road before the fire crowns the ridge. It didn't happen that way. It's just dumb luck that it didn't happen that way. It's not luck. People with skill and dedication fought that fire. They fought it. And you hear stories about firefights. The firefighters will report back after the fight or during the fight. They'll say they've never seen fires like these. These fires are crazy. These fires are demonic. These fires, it's like they're alive. It's like they're thinking, they're planning, they're getting around us, they're getting over us. People get hurt. Firefighters get hurt. And fire engines get caught in the flames and set on fire. And these crews end up driving through the same fire, flames, and sparks that people escaping are trying to maneuver through. And they're telling us these fires are crazy. And of course, when there's a fire anywhere near that ridge, anywhere near Paradise or Magalia or Forest Ranch, they just throw everything they've got at it because, man, the last time I went through there, 89 people burned to death and an entire town leveled, 20,000 homes or something like that. Maybe more than that, maybe more closer to 30. Leveled, slabbed. So I came back yesterday, and it ended up being another late day. She has an RV that she and Dad used to drive around after he retired. He retired fairly early, but he had a good pension and they had a lot of cash. And so they did some traveling and seeing the world before they get too old. And they like to go down to Lake Havasu in Nevada or something because there was a little community of people who like to travel, and they would all travel down there at a certain month of the year and stay there for the winter. And then certain month they would all leave and they don't. So they got to know each other, a community of these old people. And so they would drive down to there, and then they would sit there for a month or a couple months, and then they come back. So they had this great big RV. It's a 35-foot RV. It's old. It's I want to say 89. But they kept it up. Dad was real good with the maintenance. And of course, if you're going to drive it a lot, you're going to drive it a long distance, and you kind of have to do the maintenance, right? So they kept up with it and kept everything working, air conditioning. And I remember him complaining about how when the space heater went out, he couldn't find anybody in Paradise to do a good job replacing it. And they ruined it, and they ruined it again. And, but he was doing maintenance, right? So he kept it up. So it was sitting out there in the driveway, and Mom doesn't drive it by herself. And, Dad died a few years back. So it's just sitting there, and she doesn't run it. I think I would say she uses it as a guest room. I remember sleeping out there a couple of times. So I'm going up there and I'm thinking, all right, I got to get that RV working. I got to make sure that RV can work so that I can drive her down in a home, because it's really a home. She's lived in it. She spent many years of months living in it. So I can drive her off that hill, and she doesn't end up being homeless. 82 years old, homeless, looking for a FEMA handout, right? Because for all I knew, Friday afternoon, evening, that whole ridge was going to burn again. That was the setup. Okay, that was the setup. And I was having to think about this. And so I get up there late. I was hoping Friday night I could check on that RV and see if I could run it. It was a waste of time. It didn't want to start. So I spent Saturday working on the RV mostly and trying to get it to run, and wasn't real happy with it. And extended my car rental to Sunday night, and figured I would spend Sunday trying to get it to work because it was seeming like it might work. And she was also making noise like, oh, I could kind of live in this thing. If we came off this hill and I had to live in this thing, I could kind of do that. I've done that in the past. That's right. You could. Just start thinking about that, okay? Start thinking about getting off this hill. So I got it running to my satisfaction, meaning I thought I, or anyone else really, could jump in the driver's seat, crank it over, it would start, it would back out of there. You could go down. I wasn't able to put gas in it because it's right now it's uninsured. She's not driving it, so she didn't want to insure it. I guess that's okay. Probably you should leave the things like that insured all the time and registered so that you don't have to have issues like I was having on Saturday. So I couldn't drive it down to the service station to put fuel in it because it did need fuel. And of course it needs fresh fuel because it's been sitting for a long time. So I couldn't do anything with it. And I did my best on Sunday to make sure that it would run. And it doesn't need a lot of gas because for one thing, it has a big gas tank. And also from where she is, it's downhill. You're mostly coasting down into the valley. And once you get down there, you should be able to find a service station and top off the tank. So whoever has to drive that thing, they would be able to drive it. It would start, and it would roll down the road enough to get out. That's all you have to do is get out. So we didn't bug out on Friday night. We didn't bug out on Saturday. By Saturday afternoon, the fire was looking like it was being managed. The weather was cooperating. It was blowing the fire north. Too bad for those people, but for my purposes, it was okay. And familiar communities that are familiar to me and places that I've been were going up in flames. Those people are done. They're done. They have nothing to go back to. Some of them had businesses up there. Those businesses are gone. They have no livelihood. What were they doing up there? I don't know. Some of these roads are on the way to recreational areas, lakes that people like to go to and fish and water ski and whatnot. And, so these are just little wide spots in the road to get gasoline and maybe bait for the fishing and stuff like that. So those mostly, I know, I haven't heard because it's still an ongoing situation. My guess is they all burned. They're all inside the burn perimeter. So my guess is they all burned. And there was a lot of cattle ranching and sheep ranching and things like that. And people who were just living, one horse, one cow, one goat, two dogs, a cat living out in the barn, and they're just living. Retired, pension, disability, who knows what's going on. Selling drugs, right? There's a lot of that goes on. And just living. And, and when it burns, you lose your horse, your car, your barn, your house, your everything. And you got out, maybe you got out by the one car that would run, or maybe some neighbor picked you up and you got out with nothing, right? Clothes on your back. That's the kind of fire it was, just like the campfire. That's how it was. You see a little bit of smoke on the horizon when you're out working outside, and you go about your business and you come back and all of a sudden there's this column of smoke and there's smoke in the air and you're smelling it. You're like, what the hell's going on? And then the next thing, you get an evacuation order. You smell the smoke, you're looking up and see this huge column of smoke and like, what the hell is that? And you get an evacuation order, not a warning. Yeah, fuck that. We're going straight to get out, right? Go, 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 go. No ready, no set, go. What do? Some people would just die in place. We don't even know how many people died up there. Hopefully it was none. Yeah, good luck with that. Big fire, very hot, very aggressive. Crazy fire. Crazy fire. These places are uninhabitable. There's a lot of people living in these places. California has a fire season. People say, oh, fires are happening all the time. Yeah, and people are moving up in these marginal communities all the time too. Why? Because they can't afford to buy homes in the valley. They work in the valley, they work as a mechanic, they work as a smog technician, and they just can't afford the housing. And so they start moving up and they start living up in the hill. They're further and they're further and they're further. They don't even notice that now they have a 45-minute commute. And they're old jalopy because they can't really afford anything else. And they get up and down the hill every day, and they get used to it. They get up and down the hill every day. They don't realize they're in a trap. They're in a technological trap. And the people in paradise learned that the hard way. Some of them didn't survive it. Once that fire comes through and it cuts off your escape route, and then it turns and it goes right up in the hill, it goes out to get you. You have no escape routes, and it's coming for you. What are you going to do? My parents went north. They went the other direction, higher up in the mountains. Okay, that worked that time. That wasn't going to work with this fire, not this park fire. That was headed for the mountains too. It's a trap. It's a trap. It's a death trap. It's a trap. It's a trap. You can't live there. It's a trap. You're living in a trap. You're living in an oven. Someone's going to come along with a match and light that oven up, and you're in there. You're inside the oven. You're inside the fireplace with the wood and the kindling and everything else. You're in there, and someone's going to come out of the match and light that thing up. A campfire was started by an equipment failure. Some PG&E transmission line going through the woods was breaking up there, and then there was a woman who reported it. She said, I don't know who I'm supposed to tell this to, but I'm looking at this thing. There's sparks coming down from this big transmission tower, and I don't think they send anybody out there. I don't think they ever looked at it. I think what they tend to do is fly over with helicopters, and they fly over with helicopters because the terrain is just bullshit. Okay, you can't drive up there. Oh, by the way, if you drive up there and you have to get on someone's right of way, which is there for the purpose of inspecting the lines, right? Legally, it belongs to the utility company, or at least they have right of way. But if you try to go up there and you try to get on those right of ways, those sons of bitches will be out there with their AR-15. You get off of my land, you woke communist, and they'll shoot at you. My brother works for PG&E. He gets shot at, and you don't want to go up there. So you fly over with a helicopter because dipshit over here is going to shoot at my truck if I try to drive up there, inspect it on the road. So you fly over with a helicopter. What can you see from a helicopter? Maybe something, maybe nothing. You're moving, you're going over, you're moving. Well, it looks good to me. And of course, that's the answer you want anyway, right? You're renting this helicopter, it's whatever it is, $500 an hour. And looks good to me. No, I don't see anything. Yep. All right, let's go back. Time for Miller time. Okay. So how effective is that? I don't know. And sure enough, we caught the forest on fire. This time, though, with this park fire named after Bidwell Park, where I grew up. And when I was getting my master's degree in biology, we spent a lot of time up in Bidwell Park. A lot of time up there. I got my specialty is aquatic ecology, and we did a lot of work on Chico Creek, Big Chico Creek, and that's right in the park. Well, up there, where I spent most of my life up till now, some guy. The story probably is going to change, but this guy stole his mother's car, took it up in Bidwell Park, set it on fire, and pushed it off the cliff. What? Anyway, set the whole fucking country, the whole county on fire. And of course, that guy has now been arrested, and he's a two-time loser, and he was a pedophile, and then he was a drug addict. He beat some people up, and then he was released in 2023, and now he's setting fire to the whole fucking county, and God only knows what's going to happen to him. He'll go to prison, 3 square meals a day and a cot. So what's he going to complain about, right? And of course, he taught his mother a lesson. Fuck me. Anywho, that was arson. That's the world we live in, people. People are losing their minds. People are losing their cotton-picking minds. He went up there, set that car on fire, and set the whole county on fire. Bunch of chimps. So that's how that started. Now my mom's still up there. I couldn't check that RV out. I couldn't run it. She doesn't have insurance on it. I'm not going to be running that thing without insurance. It's 35 feet long. It's 8 feet wide. I'm not going to drive that thing without insurance, especially up there. Those people drive like maniacs. And of course, the place is swarming with cops, right? So you know how that's going to go because of the fire. And so I'm not driving up there without insurance. And so she's going to have to figure that out. I hope she does. And my plan, long story, I'm getting to the point. Basically, I'm just venting. I'm tired. I'm frustrated. I'm emotionally overwrought. I've had a bad weekend. I had a bad day Friday. I'm pissed. I feel helpless. And I'm venting. Deal with it. You're next, okay? My plan was to get that RV running so that if the fire becomes unmanaged, I can put her and her dog and her belongings and anything else I can find or think about in that RV and come down the hill, even without insurance, right? Even with a quarter tank of gas. I don't care. I'm running ahead of a fire. I don't really give a shit. You're going to write me a ticket? You're not even going to stop me going through the intersection. As long as I don't run over a bus full of nuns, it's fine, right? I'll figure out the insurance thing when I get down in the valley. So I was, ready to drive that thing. Oh, I guess I'd have to leave the rental car, but hell, that's insured too, right? I'm trying to save somebody. And then, we get down in the valley. She has a home. And the second part of the plan is that's uninhabitable up there. I need to get her someplace else. So if I can get this RV working and I can bring it down to where I live with her in it, her and her dog and everything else, I can park her in front of the house temporarily and then reorganize the driveway to park her in the driveway. It's a long driveway. It's like 67 feet long to the garage. And it's all bricks and it's nice. And, I'd have to make some modifications because there's no car there I have to get rid of. And there's a gazebo. It's just a roof with 4 legs that I built from a kit that I could park my truck under, and it's wide enough, but it's too low for an RV like that. The RV needs like 11 and a half feet clear clearance. 12 is even better. So I'd have to make some modifications. I could park her out here on the street. I could jump on that project. I could put in a sewer dump. I could run electricity out there, and in a week, probably no more than a week, back her into the driveway, and she could stay there. And then we could unload her house and all her furniture, assuming, of course, it doesn't burn to ashes, which was the scenario on Friday afternoon when I got up there. Assuming it doesn't burn to ashes and there's something left there, we could just sell it and just leave her down here. And I mention that because in a lot of my earlier videos, I have said something over and over and over again. Be where you need to be, with who you need to be with as we go forward. My mom doesn't need to be on that mountain. That's a bad place to be. She needs to be with family at 82. Anyway, I don't care how sharp and functional she is, and she is really on both. Very, very capable, very independent. Regardless, she needs to be with family. When she was just up there with Dad and the two of them alone, it was bad enough, and he wasn't well, and he could barely see, so he wasn't much help, really, to be honest. But at least she wasn't alone, right? But now she is, except for the dog. I'm going to take care of that the next time I'm up there. I'm going to put in some security cameras because she's also got prowlers and oh God. Get her down here in her RV. I don't have enough housing for her and her dog, but I could put her up in the RV. I'm building housing on the back. I'm working on the plans right now. I'm not right now because I'm completely shot, but I was working on them Thursday when the fire was going on. I was working on the plans from my addition. But I can draw plans. I can draw plans better than most people. And I'm working on my plans, 2.5 stories plus a basement, 4 bedrooms, 4 bathrooms. And the basement is available for whatever I want. But, what is that? That's a year, right? But if I could park her here in the driveway in her RV, and at least she's off the mountain, we sell the property, we get rid of all the belongings, and she's down here. We can keep an eye on her. We make sure that she has everything she needs, and she's with family. And my location is very central, so my kids are all around or about. They can come visit her and take her, shopping or whatever they want to do with her, interact with her. And she would really enjoy that, and they would really enjoy that. And I can be working on an addition, and then when the addition is built, the ground floor is 1 big bedroom divided by a stairwell. So it's, it's a U-shaped bedroom, basically, kind of a living room, entryway, and then a bedroom on the other side of the stairs. And, she could live there. She could live right there. I just move her in there, her and her dog. And we have a nice garden in the back. She could work in the garden. And there's, walkable shopping everywhere. We got a liquor store literally a block away for sundries. And we'll have a Whole Foods down there and a Trader Joe's this way and a Target over there. And it's all walkable. And if she wants to get around with one of those little electric scooters, little 4-wheel scooters that you have a seat and you sit on, you have handlebars, you go like this. Well, we'll get her an electric scooter. And she can just trundle herself anywhere she wants to go. Well, those things have like, 5-mile range or something. It's literally half a mile to Whole Foods. Get anything you want down there. Anything you want, practically, including hot food. They'll make you hot food and they serve it to you in a box. She'd be fine here. And she'd be where she needs to be with who she needs to be with as this dumpster fire destroys everything. Because those people up there are in an uninhabitable space. Where they live is a death trap. Where they are living is a death trap. The campfire proved that is not a fit place to live. And this more recent fire, the park fire, it just a few years later, it just reignites the fear, the PTSD, everything. Why am I still here? It's in 5 years since that fire, and I'm still here. And now there's another one, and it's going to jump Highway 32, and it's going to come right up this ridge. It's going to run the ridge at 25 miles an hour. It'll be here in 20 minutes, and it'll come right up that ridge, and it'll burn us all out. Burn out those of us that escaped the campfire. Now it's the park fire. And if it's not the campfire and it's not the park fire, it'll be some other fire 6 months from now, or next year, or the year after that. And this place is uninhabitable. You can get burned out by the campfire, start building your home with FEMA money or your insurance money 3 years later, finish it, and then get burned out by the next fire because they're happening that close together. Uninhabitable. The reason I'm wearing my glasses is to remind me I wanted to read something. So I'm sitting here and I'm exhausted. I'm just completely reamed out. I can't even think straight. I don't know how I'm able to do this video. My voice is weak. I'm tired. Breathe too much smoke. Probably have brain damage. So this guy was writing in our local little San Jose Spotlight. It's like a little local paper. Not a regional paper, just a city paper. And what's his background? It's a short article. I'm not going to read the whole thing. He had a byline here. Where is it? David Smathers Moore lives in San Jose, where he completed the Community Emergency Response Team training, CERT training, and is the founder of Certain Together. Okay, so he's working on preparedness. I'm going to read maybe the first 2 paragraphs of this. It's not a large article, but I don't have the energy for it. Imagine that you have no electric power during a long and intense heat wave. You can't run a fan, and your refrigerated food is spoiling. Air conditioning, if you have it, cell phones, and the internet don't work. Now imagine elderly folks, those with medical and mobility challenges, I can barely speak, and families with babies and young children facing these circumstances. Houston, Texas recently experienced this reality. Its nightmare is one of many events signaling we need to rethink readiness. A changing climate, over-reliance on digital technology, strained electrical grids, and aging infrastructure are converging in a potent mix. Well said. Individual preparedness and the standard tools of emergency management are insufficient for this new era. I'm going to repeat that. I absolutely foursquare believe this and have said so many times on this channel. Individual preparedness, and standard tools of emergency management like FEMA are insufficient in this new era. I'll read one more line. Research consistently shows that by far the most protective factor for reducing deaths during disasters is the strength of relationships among people in a community. By far, the most protective factor for reducing deaths during disasters is the strength of relationships among people in a community. Places with more social cohesion have better outcomes. If it's time to evacuate, people are more likely to bang on their neighbors' doors. If it's a shelter-in-place scenario, they'll share information, supplies, and camaraderie. If the challenge is finding a chainsaw to clear a tree blocking your front door, someone will know someone else who has one. Social connection is all purpose. We can stop there. I want to point out something, that even though he mentions climate change and over-reliance on technology and strained electrical grids, he immediately jumps into what I call acute crisis. Acute means it's sharp. Everything's fine, and then there's a crisis. Acute crises are things like earthquakes, floods, fires, tornadoes, hurricanes. These are things that just sweep in and then they're gone. They come in, beat you up, flatten your homes, burn everything up, set everything on fire, and they leave. and they leave you with wreckage. And so now it's just you and your community. And individual survival turns out to be insufficient. Individual resilience turns out to be insufficient. If it's just you and your hound dog and your 50 MREs in a bunker, then your outcome, your survival outcome, actually isn't as good as a bunch of people that are pulling together with even less than you've got. A bunch of people pulling together have better outcomes than one person with an AR-15 and a bunch of meals ready to eat. But the problem with this article is that although he starts strong, he immediately lapses into these are acute crises. And there's an aftermath. And if you have a good, strong community and you know your neighbors and you can pool resources, then in the aftermath, you can pull together. You can share meals. You can share defense. You can share knowledge. Someone maybe knows how to dress a wound. Someone knows how to operate a chainsaw. Someone has a chainsaw, and someone can do, you can fix vehicles and small engines and things like that. So you can pull together, pool your resources, pool your money, pool your food supply, right? And you can survive as a whole. And reliance on community and pooling your resources is more resilient in the aftermath than individual reliance, self-reliance. And Americans tend to be that latter, individually self-reliant, optimally self-reliant. And that sounds great and it makes great Hollywood movies, but it's not reality. It's not reality. I remember the stories that came out of the Santa Rosa fire. This is now probably 15 years ago. Again, another fire that started at the urban wildland interface. Big modern suburb, pools, the whole thing, right? Looked like Hollywood. But a fire started up in the hills and it came down through and it found the community in Santa Rosa and it saw this dead wood, right? That's houses are made out of wood. It just burned through there. I don't know, it burned 1,200 homes. It killed a bunch of people. People died trying to get away. People cooked in their swimming pools. They jumped in the water thinking they'd be safe and they died anyway. It cooked them. So I'm mentioning it because in the aftermath, and I'm going to use this word a lot, pay attention here. I'm going to transition away from using that word. In the aftermath of that fire, when the journalists showed up and say, wow, how do you feel? What's going on? They were saying things like, I never knew my neighbors. I never knew my neighbors until this fire. And I'm going to keep track of my neighbors from now on. And, we're going to have block parties and we're going to meet on the front porch and we're going to do these things. And I guess for a long time, they still did that because, journalists were still coming back and saying, so how are you folks doing? They're like, we've never been a stronger community than we are now. So we have this in our DNA. We have this in our DNA. But Hollywood, and consumerism is always teaching us another lesson. If there's any kind of a disaster, get yourself down to the Costco and stock up on, what is it? It's the usual shit, right? Bottled water, toilet paper, frozen foods, buy all the generators, buy all the ice chests, buy all the ice even, and, individual self-reliance. And I'm going to be okay. And I'm going to have my meals ready to eat. I'm going to have my shotgun in my pound and I'm going to be okay. And if it doesn't work, I'm going to jump on my SUV and I'm going to drive myself someplace else. And I'm going to have everything I need to do that too. I'm going to fill up my tank in my car. I'm going to be at the service station twice a week, filling up my tank even if I don't drive it all the time. I'm going to constantly fill up my tank on my car so I can drive anywhere I need to go by myself in my car. And it turns out the people in Santa Rosa, in the aftermath, they needed each other and they created that for themselves. FEMA didn't create that. The county didn't create that. They created that for themselves. It's probably all gone now, of course, because since there's no constant repetition from media and consumerism and capitalism that you need to be mutually dependent on each other. Okay, since that isn't the message, the message is buy your own car, buy your own house, have your own vacation, go to Disneyland, enjoy yourself, eat this, go there, buy that, drive that, and it's all individual happiness and reliance. And so of course it doesn't last very long. This guy's talking about typical acute crises, and that's fine. And we need to be prepared for these things. And the lesson we learned from Santa Rosa, and the last time there was a fire hereby, And they were talking about community. He's talking about community and making strong communities. And there's this community emergency response team training. He doesn't really link to it. And okay, it's kind of interesting, but and maybe we do need community emergency response teams. Would that make a difference? Maybe more people would be saved, but I don't think that's the problem. I don't think the problem is acute community response. I don't think that going up there and holding my mom's hand and making sure that she was going to be okay and driving her out of there and then driving her back, that's not the response. That's an acute crisis. There was a long-term crisis up in those mountains. And it's terrible. You can't live up there. You just can't. Well, people can do anything they want. Yeah, they can burn to death. Okay. Yeah, that's your choice. You're volunteering to do that. And as global heating and climate change get worse, the crises are going to stop being acute and chronic. They're going to have long time frames. There will be fires that burn unchecked for weeks or even months up in that country. Why? Because no one wants to fight fires anymore. You can't make people fight fires. Well, what if the state runs out of money? What if the state runs out of people willing to do it? It's dangerous work, and it's getting more dangerous by the year. These fires are insane. They're demonic. They're possessed, and people don't want to fight them anymore. And what happens when you just can't pay people enough to fight these crazy ass fires? What happens when there's a big fire and a bunch of firefighters die in the fire and everyone leaves? Fuck this, I'm out. This was mismanaged. You people didn't take care of those people. I'm not going to be part of this. I'm going home. And they leave, and then what do? What happens when they can't fight the fires anymore? What happens when there's, too many fires and not enough technology to go around? They're fighting this fire up in the Park Fire. They're fighting it mostly with helicopters and jets, big jets, 737s, bringing in fire retardant, helicopters bringing in buckets of water, great big buckets of water. They're like 6 feet across. I've seen them. And that's technology, because the terrain is too rough. What happens if they can't do that? What if they don't have enough 737s? What if they don't have enough helicopters? And some of the fires just have to be let go. And what if at some point all the fires just can't be controlled anymore? I mean, you can fight the fire, you can fly the helicopters, dump the water, and fly the 737s and dump the chemicals. And what if it doesn't do any good? What if fires are just too big and there's too many of them? And then they combine and then they make things even worse. Who's to say it's going to work out? You just can't count on it working out. These fires could burn for weeks, months. And then we have the heat, and then we have the droughts, and then we have the floods right on top of that. And who says that this is going to get better? Who says it ever gets better? Who says that FEMA is going to keep showing up and writing checks for people? Who says it's all going to be fine? What if you get to a point where there is no aftermath? There is no aftermath. You're just always in the math. I guess that's what that means, right? You're always in the middle of it. There's no after. And it's just one thing after another. It's just one crisis after another. And pretty soon you're just ground down completely. And you have to get out. Where are you going to go? Your habitat is uninhabitable. What is it? It got too hot. It burned too much. But pretty soon there was no shopping, because why would retailers be up there if there's not going to be any humans and you're the last human left, and it's 50 miles to get food, and then it snows, and then it snows you in, and you're snowed in for a month and a half, and no one even knows you're up there. And when they finally come up there to find you, you're a block of ice. You froze. You died. You starved to death. You froze. Uninhabitable. That's what global heating is doing to us. It's making all of these places uninhabitable. Now, I happen to live in a place that's pretty habitable. We have cool winds in the evening. You can almost live without air conditioning. I'm not running my air conditioning today. It's a tiny little window air conditioner. It's about that big. And even on the hot days, it's sufficient. I turn it on at 10 o'clock in the morning, turn it off again at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Then the cool breeze comes in. This, as far as that goes, this is pretty habitable. And we don't have fires often. There was some a while back, but again, they're up in the mountains. I'm not living in the mountains. I'm living down in the flats. And there's a lot of money around here, a lot of wealthy people, a lot of technology, a lot of businesses, and pretty much we're taken care of. They're not going to abandon this place. But if you live in Paradise or Regalia or Inskip or Butte Meadows or Forest Ranch or Cohasset, what do you got? You got nothing. You got nothing. Oh, another follow-on thing. This was interesting. I was watching the news. I guess it was Saturday. And some guy was pointing out he's a professional map cartographer. He maps fires. That's what he does. That's his whole living. He maps fires. And he said, "You see this? You see this line through this fire? This park fire? You see this line? This is a transmission line from the Northwest, from Oregon and Washington. It's a transmission line. It brings power down from the hydroelectric power plants up in the Northwest. They got lots of water, Columbia River and all that, Rogue River. Where are they? They have a lot of water, power up there, and not many people. So they use this transmission line to bring that power down into California. Well, this transmission line is in the middle of this fire. They shut it down. They shut it down. This transmission line is not transmitting power. What if California needs that power? Then what happens to us? We start getting blackouts? What if we start getting blackouts in a heat wave because there's a fire that shut down a transmission line? Now we're having blackouts and a heat wave, and now we have our own disaster. So you've already got our disaster with a fire, and then that caused another problem with the power transmission from the Pacific Northwest, and then that cascades into rolling blackouts in the California, Southern California in the heat, and pretty soon you've got people who don't have refrigerators and air conditioning, and it's 115, 120 degrees out there, which has been doing a lot, by the way, recently. Thank you, global heating, for nothing. And but they have no power. Now what? So I actually responded to this guy. Here I am writing away. I don't know. They reserve the right to not post comments, and I'm hip to that because there's a lot of wacky yahoos out there who say crazy things. Trump being Jesus and stuff like that. So I don't know if this is ever going to make it into the comments on this article, but I wrote something, and I thought that this encapsulated what I'm trying to say here pretty well. Maybe I'll change my mind, but anyway, right now I think it's okay. So, remember, he was writing about resilience and awareness and working with your community to create resilience. Here's what I wrote. Most of these awareness efforts are geared toward acute crisis management, earthquakes, floods, and the like. Today, we confront an entirely new kind of crisis in global heating, caused by carbon dioxide emissions from our burning of fossil fuels, coal, oil, and natural gas. Global heating will bring long-term crises that never go away and only get worse for decades running. We can already anticipate collapse of electrical systems, healthcare systems, water and food supplies. Agriculture will suffer under long lists of harms, including heavy rains, prolonged droughts, and brutal heat waves, often running one after the other. When it gets too hot to work outside, will farm and construction workers need to wear spacesuits? Global supply chains of all kinds will collapse as trade partner nations start to suffer from their own massive internal political, social, and economic disruptions. A rolling refugee crisis will span the globe, affecting every nation. These disruptions and more are already taking place across the planet, all at the same time, driven by global heating. As much as I have thought about how, as a global species, we might cope with so many simultaneous threats, I always come down to the same conclusion. We won't. Full stop. I have watched the IPCC process and followed the COPs. I know as much about technological innovation as anyone alive. Nothing is working, and the laws of physics are not on our side. We need to stop burning fossil fuels with immediate effect, taking whatever hit we have coming, and reorganizing ourselves to live without them. Yet political leaders and corporate titans will not allow that discussion to start. So what can we do? On reflection, the familiar notions of preparedness we've debated for decades no longer cut it. But smaller is often more resilient. Through history, that is the only constant. We need to rethink how we organize our lives and activities and our communities without fossil fuel inputs for critical functions like food and water. Store water locally, generate electricity locally, grow food locally, work with our immediate neighbors, create islands of resilience, and get the local governments to support this. Start hundreds or thousands of community garden projects, and then grow and store and preserve food and community caches. Build much more, but vastly smaller housing, 100 square foot in size, in multiple levels to preserve arable land, create defensible perimeters, rely less on formal systems like 911, live healthier lives, travel less, if at all, spend more time problem solving, move family members closer to home or into your home. These are sensible measures that might make a big difference in the future. And yet, getting anyone to have this discussion is like pulling teeth. Everyone wants to be free from responsibility. Nobody wants to change. Nobody wants to admit we have hit a wall of technical complexity and global interconnectedness through which we will not pass intact. Nobody wants to recognize that, with all the climate harm now coming our direction, our current way of running our lives is over and done. Our modern Titanic has hit the global heating iceberg, and 300 years at least of human progress, if you insist on calling it that, is going under. Those as can learn to build lifeboats and quickly have the best chance of defining a future without the crutch of complexity we have come to think of as eternal and immortal. That way has just scant years left to endure. The era of abundant fossil fuels is clearly at an end. We must end it ourselves, and few can see beyond the event horizon of catastrophic global heating. What comes after that? Well, I guess we're about to find out. Buckle up. Whichever way we head, it's going to be a bumpy ride. And again, what I'm trying to say here is being prepared for an acute crisis like an earthquake is one type of thing, and that's good. But preparing for a chronic crisis that actually has no exit, that's the thing that it's really difficult to explain to people, that you have to prepare for a crisis that never has an aftermath. That word, you see that word? Aftermath? You have to prepare now for crises that don't have an aftermath. There's no after. There's no after. That's really difficult for people to understand. Everyone has their personal experience of trauma and crisis, and the narrative we share with each other, and the wonderful stories that make it into print, and the heroes, and the neighborhoods that came together. All of this stuff is in the aftermath. Just the fact that anybody is alive and willing to talk about it, and that there's even journalists willing to hear the stories and write them up and put them in media. The fact that any of that happens at all is because it ended. And then people kind of rebuilt, and people kind of normalized, and people kind of went on, and then there was a story. Well, what happens if your crisis never ends? Now, we have some experience with that, not recently and not personally, but if you dig in through history a little bit, you'll find examples of that. Like, for example, the Second World War. Parts of Europe were largely, roundly devastated by the Second World War. For some of those people, there was no aftermath. And of course, the people that found themselves living suddenly under Soviet rule, because the Soviets rolled in and took their country from them and didn't give it back, there was no aftermath. And there were entire cities that just burned to the ground. It took generations to rebuild those places. And who got to enjoy that? Well, maybe not the people who were watching the buildings fall down. For them, it may have just never gotten better. We have some experience with these things, but nothing on a scale that we're seeing now. And we're seeing it now. It can get worse. It will get worse. These are early days, but these fires now burning through California, years in a row. Fires that used to happen every 30 years are now happening 3 years apart. Pretty soon it'll be 3 months apart. Count on that. And it's going to continue burning like this in Canada and California and the Pacific Northwest and Montana, in New England. It's going to keep burning like this until everything is burned. And all the towns are burned, and all the cities are burned, and all the infrastructure is burned, and the power plants are burned, and the stores are burned, and the crops are burned. It's all going to burn. And that's not apocalyptic thinking. That's not, you've been reading too much of the book of Revelations. That's just a fact, people. It's all going to burn. Go read yourself some headlines. Well, it always burns like that. Not if you talk to the people that are fighting these fires. Not if you talk to the people that live in these communities. No. Their entire communities are burned down. Communities that have been there since the gold rush. They've been there since slave days. Whole communities that have been there for hundreds of years, have buildings that are hundreds of years old, burned to the ground for the first time. And there was a fire one ridge over the year before, and there was a fire the one ridge over that way 2 years before, and this year it's on our ridge and we get to burn. And it's all going to burn. Everything's going to burn. Everything's going to burn. Global heating, fire, everything's going to burn. Year after year after year after year until everything is burned. And by then, what's your situation? All those people, if they didn't just die in place, which is, some probability of that, those people become internal refugees. They can't go back to those places. Where are they going to go? Where's the housing? Where are the jobs? Where's the money to move them and get them repositioned? Where are the families to take them in? There's nothing. There's nothing for these people. Nothing. We don't operate that way. We don't operate on the idea of perpetual crisis. We operate on the idea of resilience and acute crises where it just, boom, hits you and then it disappears. Wow, what was that? I don't know. We got to rebuild. We don't operate at all with continuous crisis. We don't do it. Now, that woodland community up there, after the campfire and after the park fire, okay, there are still people who are refugees from the campfire whose houses burned down, but they got away, who are now living, in cars and trailers and RVs in all around the countryside. And now the park fire is going to make more of the same. It's going to destroy businesses, livelihoods. These people won't have money. They won't have income. They won't have a house. Where are they going to go? What are they going to do? Who's going to take them in? Who's going to make them whole? How are they going to start over? If you had a bar and grill up there and it all burned down, what are you going to do? You're going to start a new one? Maybe you get insurance, but maybe it's not enough. Maybe your bar or grill up in Cohasset wasn't worth much, and they'll give you $50,000 or $20,000. And so you have to get $20,000 to start a new one in some posh place like Chico or Marysville, Yuba City. How far will $20,000 get you starting a new business in these places? Hell, that won't even get you permits. And the only reason you had a bar and grill in Cohasset was because it was 90 years old and was built before permits. You just inherited it or you bought it or whatever. And you just got in there and you started, grilling and barring. And now that it's burned down, you're going to have to build a new one with permits. It's going to have to be, built to code, and it's going to cost $100,000, but you got $20,000 in an insurance payout. And now what are you going to do? You're done. You're done. Your whole life is over forever. And that's not an acute crisis for you. That's a permanent crisis for you. And we are not geared for that. We are not geared for permanent, perpetual, ongoing crisis. We're not. We're not. You think you are, but you're not. You think FEMA is going to help you. They won't. You think the government's going to swoop in here. The same government that most of those people up there on that hill are, they have these dark conspiracies about the government. All these helicopters flying over. They're not carrying water. They're carrying chemtrails, and they're going to implant vaccine bugs and viruses in us. And, out there with your gun, shooting at the helicopters. I'm not even joking. That shit, that's real shit. That's what they do. They shoot at the helicopters because they're the government. What do you do with these people? They were fine when they were up in the hills. They could inject all the methamphetamines they wanted to. Now they get burned out. Now they're down in the valley trying to rub shoulders with people that don't have those problems. And how's that work out? They end up in prison. Now, if we had done something to, what do you do? If we had some sort of long-term crisis management, we could have integrated these people into communities. Maybe it starts out as a refugee camp, but eventually it becomes a refugee community with housing and the whole thing. And then it's just not even a refugee community anymore. It's just another neighborhood. Could have done that, but we don't do that. We handle everything like it's an acute crisis. But they're not. Those days are done. You can't be prepared for the crisis we have coming because they're never going to go away. And if you think that 50 meals ready to eat military MREs are going to get you through the next crisis, you're gone. You're wrong, because that crisis isn't going to end. And you'll go through your 50 MREs in 15 days, and now you've got no food. And you were ready for a crisis that lasted 15 days, except now your whole community's been burned down. And how long is that crisis going to last? Well, it may last forever. That may never come back. The insurance companies could say, oh, yeah, we're going to redline the shit out of this place. The campfire, now the park fire, we're out. You may be done. Can't get a mortgage because you can't get insurance because they won't sell it to you. Why would they? Yours are going to burn down again in 4 years. What's the point? Get out. And we're not buying into your freedom to choose to be an asshole, okay? And to play dice with your own life. We're not buying into that. We're not insuring you. We're not insuring your property. We're not insuring your lifestyle. We're not insuring your stability. Get out, because we're not playing that game. And so you won't be able to build up there. Won't be able to get a mortgage if you're cash rich and you own land and you can, don't mind buying permits. And I guess you could rebuild on your own dime, and you don't have a mortgage, so you don't have to have insurance, and you still have to pay taxes. And the taxes you pay are the taxes that are going to send those 737 bombers over your house, dropping fire retardant next time your shit catches on fire. That's what your taxes are for. You think it costs $1 million a day to fly those things? Probably cost $100,000 per drop. So no, I don't want to hear about taxes are high in California. You get a 737 flying over your house to drop fire retardant on your ridge, and that's not worth paying taxes? Is anybody else, is any other country, any other state in this union going to do that for you? Anyone, anywhere? Going to fly a 737 over your house to drop fire retardant on your garage to keep it from burning? Fly helicopters over your house to drop thousands of gallons of water on the ridge behind your house to keep your house from burning down? Like, you don't have to pay for that? You don't have to call that person? You don't have to do anything. You don't even have to call the sheriff to say, oh my God, my house is on fire. The sheriff already knows. Because what? Fucking satellites. Spotter planes in the air 24 hours a day. They know all about it. It costs money. This is $1 billion fire. Billions of dollars going to these fires. Billions. And that's not even the aftermath. That's another billions of dollars to rebuild these places, rebuild these people. Billions of dollars. Insurance money, FEMA money, their own money. Billions of dollars to fight the fire. Billions of dollars to rebuild everything. Every single time. First it's the campfire. Now it's the park fire. Then it'll be the beetle fire, and then it'll be the dragonfly fire, and then it'll be the buzzard fire. And places are uninhabitable. Get out. Get out. Get out. These are not acute crises. We're not going to send FEMA in. Get out. This is permanent crisis. Ongoing permanent crisis caused by global heating, caused by our consumption of fossil fuels, and we're not going to stop doing that. So, what's the projection based on physics? If we don't stop burning fossil fuels and you're still living in a place that's uninhabitable and undefensible, and so what's going to happen to you? More of the same, more often and worse. More fires, more often and worse. Harder to fight, wind-driven, until everything possible is burned down. Everything that can burn is burnt. Every tree, every animal, every house, every human, every car, everything that can burn is burnt. And it's a moonscape. It looks like Mars. And so are you going to live up there on Mars? You're going to build a house on fucking Mars? Get out. It's uninhabitable. That's my advice. I can't make you do it. No one can make you do it. We're not even having this conversation. I'm the only one talking about this. No one ever talks about this. The reason I talk about this is because I understand what's going down. Physics. My dude. My friend. This planet's trying to kill us. Feels that way, doesn't it? Well, it's physics at least. Physics is going to ruin your life. Physics is going to ruin your community, all of it, your entire community, all at once. Physics. Earth system dynamics. Most people wouldn't even know what that means. It's trying to kill you. It's going to kill you. It's going to kill all these people. We got 8,000 million people on Earth. They're all going to die. I'll bet a few million are going to die. Physics. Uninhabitable. Can't live here. Can't survive, can't eat, can't drink, can't build housing, can't survive the heat, Can't breathe the air. It's so hot. Physics. What are you going to do? Get to the lifeboats. Get out. Get someplace else. Build a new community someplace else. Start over. Get to know your neighbors. Circle your wagons. Build a defensible perimeter. Localize your food production. Localize your water supply. Localize your energy supply. Localize everything. Build strong walls. Defend your interior. Work with your neighbors. Bring your family members. Build more housing. But don't build housing that it covers up arable land, unless you build it with a flat roof and grow food on the top, right? Innovate. Think about it. Don't wait for someone to solve your problem. Don't wait for someone to bail you out. Don't wait for them to come and get you. Don't wait for them to fly that 737 over your property again. Don't wait for that helicopter to fly over your house with a bucket of water again. Get out. It's uninhabitable. Call your family members. Call people you know. Call friends from high school. Get out. Listen, man, I got to get out of here. I got enough money to buy an RV. Can you got a place I can park an RV for a while until I figure my shit out? Well, yeah, you can park in my driveway, I guess, but, not for more than a weekend. Oh, really? This isn't that kind of crisis, my dude. Come on, we played football together. We're high school together. We were big buddies. My life is over. I got to get out of here. Yeah, fine. I'll try and figure something out, but come on, man, this is not an acute crisis. This is a permanent crisis. My life is done. My life is over. I got to get out of here. I am running ahead of the storm. Who are you going to call? You have any friends like that? You got any family like that? You better start making those calls. You better start making those calls now. My mom is lucky. I'm that person. I went up there. I got her RV working. I was willing to drive it, put fuel in it, bring it down here, park it in front of my house, and then park it in my driveway when I got that ready for her. And I'm willing to do that for her. Is anyone willing to do that for you? Or are you willing to do that for anybody else? That's the level of the discussion now, people. That's the level of the discussion. That's what we're talking about. That's what we're talking about. If you're not having that conversation, then you're wasting your time. You're in denial about what we're supposed to be talking about. Long-term, permanent, worsening, multiple, aggravating crises. Long-term, permanent, aggravating, parallel, simultaneous, life-threatening crises all the time. Always getting worse. Always affecting more people every time until finally everyone is on the move. Everyone's in some crisis. Everyone's suffering from PTSD. Everyone is distrustful. Everyone is in crisis. Everyone is weeping. Every family is broken apart. Everyone has lost track of everybody else. No one knows where they belong. No one has an anchor. No one knows where they're supposed to go. No one knows where their next meal is coming from. Permanent, ongoing, overlapping, parallel, simultaneous, life-threatening crises. Do I have to go through the list again? Because of physics. Physics. Not because I said so. Not because Nostradamus said so. Not because Jesus said so. Not because it's in the book of Revelation. Physics. You're fighting physics. You're fighting the planet. The planet is kicking us off the planet. The planet is kicking us off. We're going to have to go underground. I don't know what we're going to do. Multiple, simultaneous, life-threatening, long-term, ongoing, parallel, simultaneous, life-threatening crises. Good luck with all that shit. Nothing in Hollywood, nothing on any YouTube channel except this one. Nothing you ever had, no conversation, no FEMA, no a warning, no anything you've ever experienced in your life or in Hollywood or in literature or in a Stephen King novel. Nothing has prepared you for this. Nothing. There's not going to be any Hollywood happy ending. There's not going to be any aftermath. You see, there's a word you got to watch out for. In the aftermath. Well, I don't think so. You got all the aftermaths, all the happy endings you're ever going to get. Get out.